Hey, I just wanted to show you where we are with this thing. So, before I mounted the Uno Nano here on the side, I got a little clamp on it, hold it in place. And I put a couple of little straps back here. One on both sides of this lever. And that's because the wires that are in there, I didn't want them getting caught on this lever. I was going to mount them against this wall, but then I decided not to, so I put them underneath here. Got them routed around back and up into the connectors. Now, this first connector is the power coming in. The second connector is for the switch. And this third connector is a port to go to this guy, which is going to be mounted on the indexer. This shaft is going to mount the pulley that mounts the belt that connects it to the unit. Now gotta tell you, I had a lot of trouble with this. When I had it apart, everything was working, and when I put it together, I had a lot of problems. Let me stabilize you a little bit. So this connection I had here, I had a cable on it that went from between here and here, and the cable I had, well, this was actually I don't know if this was the second or third one. Now the first one I had, piece of wire, had metal sheathing on it, and I didn't think too much about it. You know, I was looking for the size so it would fit this thing fairly snug. And it wasn't working. When I go to hook it up, it just didn't work. And so I had the other one with this little the encoder part that the magnet rides against, and I was blowing these things out, and I couldn't figure it out. So then I changed it to this cable. Actually wasn't like it, and that didn't work either. But when I take it apart and I try it with the components separated, you know, not using the connector, not using the cable, it would work. So I figured that, you know, obviously there was something in this connection that wasn't working. So I had to change this cable for another cable, and that didn't work either. So then I took it apart again, and the thing worked. And then when I put it together, it didn't work. And I didn't think it was the cable, but I checked everything, and all my connections were right as far as the wiring goes, but it just didn't work. So it would work when I use this guy and plug it in to the Nano, but then when I use my power supply, it didn't work. And my power supply was this one. I mounted it on a block, and I secured the wires with these little clamps on the end, thinking, well, I'll just, let it lay on the floor and it would be stable, and just run this cable into my power. Now I had this set at 5 volts because I read that you shouldn't put more than 5 volts into this Nano, and that's what comes out of the Nano. But after it didn't work, I did a lot more research, and I found out that you can have this one here is the 5 volts, and this is the one from the outside, I think it's the VCC or something like that. And I didn't want to have to use this cable, because then I'd have to plug it into a computer, and so I did some research on this, and this VCC, you should be running 7 to 12 volts in here. And then this other one that comes out of the Nano restricts it down to 5 volts. And then it goes into the card. So rather than, this voltage supply, when I put a meter on it, it has 5 volts, and then it drops down to 4.3, 4.4, 4.3, 4.4, then it goes back up to 5, and it fluctuates quite a bit. And I didn't think that was a real big issue, but like I said, I did a little research on it, and you could use, they say 7 to 12 volts on this side, but you don't want to use 12 volts, because then the thing that reduces the voltage on this Nano tends to get hot. So you really don't want it that. So ideally you want to put somewhere around 7 volts in it. I guess the reason for that is because if you get a little fluctuation in your volts, it won't go below 5. And that was probably one of the reasons why I was blowing out these little encoder things, because it was dropping below 5 volts. And you're not supposed to use these with anything less than 5 volts. And another thing I found out was that the cable I was using, for some reason, it was dropping the voltage. Now I knew that you know, the longer your cable is, you're going to get some voltage drop in it. But I didn't think that, you know, having such a thick wire, this is probably 18 gauge, and it was apparently dropping the voltage by the time it got to the end. So ultimately what I ended up using was I had ordered this ribbon cable, and it was 28 gauge, which is really small, and I got this so I could wire up this nano, because that's about the only size you can get inside them holes. You could probably go down to 24 to get inside those holes to solder them. So I ordered this. I had this cable on order, and so I took it apart again and I tried it, and it worked. So then I used this 28 gauge wire on these connections for this length that I needed to go from this unit to the actual encoder that's going to be attached to the motor. I needed some length to get around and attach it, and I used this 28 gauge, and it worked. Now I guess it's because the wire size was just right, and it didn't put a lot of drop in the voltage. And it took me almost 2 weeks to figure this out. And so in order to get the voltage, I used this plug. Now this came off of my IKEA lamp. If you go online, well, that's how I did it. Was I went online, I was looking for these lamps you could put on the machine, and they got these IKEA lamps, and they're like $10, and it's got a gooseneck on it and a little light, and it's got a round metal base. But you don't use the metal base, you just attach it to a mag base, put a little adapter on there, and you can mount it wherever you want, and it just plugs in, and it's got a little on-off switch. So I was looking at this, and this thing puts out 7 volts, and it puts out a half a amp. So, you know, not being a electrical person, I wasn't sure about the amp part. I knew it didn't take a lot of amps, but I figured it would just use what it needed and kind of like throw the rest aside. But anyway, this thing puts out 7 volts, so rather than play around with that power supply, I mean, I'll play around with it later. And I had sense when I was starting to blow these things out, you know, they're only $3 a piece. So I ordered 4 more, and they should be here this week, and then I can play with it some more. But meantime, I use this, and I just plug this into here, and that's my power supply, and that works. And I finally got the new card, the one I ordered. Now this isn't the original one I ordered. The original one I ordered from Allied Express. I'm not sure if this was it, because it didn't say Allied Express on it, but it has some kind of Japanese thing on it. But nevertheless, I put it on there, and this is the back of it. Now the front of it looks just like the picture. The front of it looks just like this. So it's got these little silver things. I don't know what they are, but that's a little chip in the middle. And the little silver things, I believe, take the place of these captivator things I was having to use. But I mean, the system with these captivators and the little block, the receiver part, I mean, it worked. And I guess like I said, when the voltage dropped, it kind of messed these guys up a little bit. But I got this, and it seems to be working fine. And before, when I was using these little chips, it didn't start at 0. But when I use this, when I turn it on, it does start at 0. So this guy, Curious Scientist, was correct. When you use this, it does start at 0. So anyway, I got it to work, and I ended up mounting the display originally. I talked about mounting it in here and then bolting this up through the bottom of that. But like I said before, is that you'd have to be standing over it to look at it. I didn't want to be standing over it. I wanted to be standing, on the side or in the back to see what the numbers were. Now this I printed on my 3D printer. And it basically is this same thing. Now after I printed this one, the power that comes into the screen, for some reason I just put it on the right side. And what would have happened, I didn't even try it because I realized after I printed it that the display needs to be mounted like this with the connections on the left side, so the numbers would be here. If you put it like this, the numbers are upside down because they start here and they go over here. So I needed the numbers here and then go this way. So all I did was I just went back into the CAD program and I just took all this stuff and rotated it so everything goes, so this slot is over here, and I got little there's little chips on the back of that screen, so I had to put a little recess in there for them to lay into. And then these pieces here is actually what supports the screen. But that's what that looks like. So I got that mounted on there. That gets mounted on there so I can just operate this. And I can look at here and I can see what the numbers are. So I put this connection on here so I can mount it onto the unit. Now I know you're thinking, well, that was dumb, you should have put the connection on first. But what I did was, when I made that new bar for the back, I put these slots in it because I got tired of cutting the wires and then resoldering them. So I made that connection. I made that slot in there so I could take this nut off, slip it in there, and then put the nut back on, and it'll be there. And the unit is at work right now, and I got this piece home, the base plate. Leave that off. So anyway, it just slips in there, and then I push it over here, and then I put the nut on it, tighten it up. That way if I have to take it apart, I just do the opposite, and I can take this off. Anyway, it was a struggle to figure out what was going on with this thing, but I finally got it working, so we're good on that. And I got to take this off, mount it to the actual unit, put the pulley on there, and put the cover on it, and get it going. And as far as the cover is concerned, I made this in pieces because the 3D printer won't print a flat surface if it's up in the air. It has to have something to lay against. So I had to print this in 3 different sections, and I glued it together. And I got to throw a little paint on there, but it's looking pretty good. So I think we're finally going to get this thing back together, but yeah, it was a struggle to figure out what was going on with this. But I had to use, like I said, this 28 gauge ribbon wire, even though I'd rather have a cable, but at least it's working now. So I just wanted to show that to you. Yeah, this was a good idea, but this is better. Alright, I think that's about it for now, and we'll get back to you later. Okay, bye.